The passwords, they go, don't worry everybody, passwords were encrypted, everybody's fine, don't worry about it. Unfortunately, if those encrypted passwords all have the same decrypt key, so what you're going to then have are thousands and thousands, or however many there are, people out there in these identity theft forums who are having some real fun at your expense with trying to come up with that way of decrypting them. Once they've decrypted one, they've got them all. So eventually you will find that those very easily will just go to some websites and there'll already be decryptors for them. So the LinkedIn breach from a few years ago, there is a decrypt for all the encrypted data. So unfortunately, even the ones there where it's a load of gobbledygook, it might not be as secure as you might think it is. So the next time you read in the press, somebody's been hacked, but they're saying, don't worry, it was all encrypted data. It's not quite as safe as it sounds. It might remove the immediate risk, but it doesn't remove the long-term risk. And again, to reiterate, please, it's so important. If you've got caught in one place and you're using the same details on multiple sites, you've just been caught everywhere that you ever go, because they can log in as you anyway that they choose. That's really, really important. So let's have a look. We've seen how to spot a phishing attack and how it's crafted. Let's go and have a look at those emails and the technique of creating them. Look at it in a little bit more detail. So first of all, we've got the email itself. And we've got some pointers. So here is an example of a phishing email that might come through. And it's, although it's not a real one, it's not an actual one, it's very, very similar, as you would have seen, to our Microsoft Office 365 one earlier on. So first of all, we're going to see urgency in there. These are commonalities. They're not a rule book. Not every phishing email will contain these things, but these are a bit of a rule of thumb, if you will. There is usually a call to action, or in plain English, I better do this or I'm going to get in trouble, because that's what they're hoping, is that you're panicking and you're just going to do something very quickly. Whereas when they ask nicely, you're very unlikely to. The branding is usually quite good in terms of how they're going to put addresses on, in terms of how they're going to format text, how they're going to format logos, all those sorts of things. The email addresses are usually similar. So they might be substituting domains, for example, or changing letters and numbers. They don't always. It's rarely going to be too personal, as that would be a giveaway. So they're usually going to try and keep it quite impersonal. Also, it's going to mean these things are ultimately generated by the large-scale equivalent of a mail merge. And so it's very hard to get too in-depth and personal. So they don't know that much about you. They only know what they've captured or what they're looking to capture so far. Urgency, again, we're trying to force a response. So we've got down there with point 6, that if you don't update your information in 24 hours, your account's going to be deactivated. So it's trying to really reinforce that call to action and make it something that you can't ignore. And lastly, we've got a zip file down there. It's not always the way, but as well as links, there's commonly going to be an attachment on there as well, just to see if they can get people. Commonly what's going to be in the zip file are things with macros embedded into them, such as Excel documents. That can cause all manner of problems. And one of the reasons why, as part of our recent Complete Endpoint Security initiative, we block macro-enabled Excel documents that have been received via the internet. So there was a bit of logic behind that one, because this is one of the common ways that we're seeing people getting into trouble as a result of phishing emails. So that's a common sort of look over the email, and some of the tactics that people use in terms of the craft of it and how they would put something together. As I said, this is really almost a carbon copy of the real Microsoft one that I showed earlier on. And most things will follow this sort of template. Moving on is going to be the lure page. So it's going to be the bit that's going to be, we've almost got you. We just need that little bit more. And first of all, it's going to look good, but it's usually going to be a bit off in some way, shape or form. Now, it's easy to spot. If I'd have used some real world examples, it would be easy to spot in this context, because you are listening to something talking about cybersecurity. So your brain is processing the fact that what I'm putting up is going to be phony. So you're looking at Appel -pay there in the browser bar. It's a lot harder when, as I keep saying, you're in the middle of 100 different things and you're getting some emails coming in, and this one looks like it could be an invoice that maybe hasn't been paid for a service that we really need, and everyone's going to get in trouble if it gets turned off. So you have to think about these sort of things in the context of which they're received, which is usually people having a bad day or having a really busy day. So the address is almost there. Substituting letters, numbers, slight misspellings. So we've got Appel instead of Apple, because of course you're not going to be able to go and register domains, or usually companies will have a bit of a land grab in and around domain names that are similar to their actual domain name to stop people doing this, but you can't get all of them. And if not, then new domain suffixes are going to pop up that you haven't yet bought. There's no navigation bar or footer because they've come all this way to, or they've done all the hard work to try and get you into their fake site. Why would they want to let you leave? And if they put up the standard Apple top navigation bar that would go to like the store and the product information and support and things like that, that would obviously have to go off to the real Apple website because they're not going to go to all the bother of faking the entire site. And so why would they want you to run away at this point? You might get lucky and you might get some formatting errors and typos in these things, but then again, you may not. Unfortunately, it really just depends on how in-depth the criminals have gone to in order to make the scheme believable, or how much of a hurry they were in when they were writing it. So again, just trying to spot some of the commonalities in here around what will happen as a result to try and get your emails and passwords. Another thing, of course, is there, as it says in number 4, the Apple ID page doesn't require your password. It would be an email first, and then it would be into a password, so it would be a double login. But most people aren't going to know that. Really, in all fairness, users can't be expected to know how every website behaves. So what can you do about it? Next up, what ways do you have to defend your businesses and your corporate data against phishing attacks? First of all and foremost, in my opinion, to defend against phishing is education. You have to educate your teams in what phishing is, in how it can harm your business, what they need to look for and what they need to do to check if an email is real, and how they can practice better overall cybersecurity hygiene, or whatever you want to call it, as a whole, such as not reusing their passwords. But not just that they haven't got to do it, but really to underline the importance behind why they're being asked to do these things. Because just asking people to change their password every month or to never use the same password on 2 websites, it just sounds like another thing that we all have to do. It's trying to get to the next layer down of understanding how doing such a thing can impact upon the business and how it's dangerous. What are the implications, such as when they get you once, they're going to get you everywhere. When you read about all these things about websites being breached, you've done nothing wrong. A website held your credentials in plain text. They've been breached. Your credentials are now out in the wild. And so anywhere else that those credentials have been used is vulnerable. I heard a phrase recently at a trade show that I really liked, and it was called patch the human. We now all, I hope, undertake regular updates of all of our IT systems to ensure that we are safe from the latest threats. So we're updating our software, we're updating Windows, we're updating the firmware in our computers, we're updating the firmware in our networking devices. However, we don't do the same with our people. We don't educate them nearly as well as we should, but people underpin everything that we do. Without people, process, and technology working in equal measure, I don't believe you can have an effective cybersecurity defense. Too often, I find that businesses say that they have bought X, and as a result, now everything is fine. They don't need to worry about any of this cybersecurity stuff. I'd love that to be the case, but as always with technology, the best made plans can quickly come undone when the people using them do things with a system that the person who wrote the system never thought that they would. And as a result, bad things can happen. By practicing security awareness training with the people in your business, you can educate your teams to know what to look for and know what to do. It doesn't mean that they're going to do it every single time, because unfortunately the world is ever changing, but it does mean that they stand a lot better chance of either spotting something or of, the little things. If you know that an email is real, you suspect it is, just call the person who's sending it and say, have a conversation around whatever it is that they're asking, rather than just going off and doing it. Number one, it might improve communication within a business. Number two, it may also spot a few of, I'm really sorry, but I didn't ask you to do that. So whatever you've had through, that isn't from me. And then upon closer inspection, it will transpire that instead of an L and then an I, there are 2 L's in a domain name, for example, which is very hard to spot, especially if you use fonts without serifs, because you can't see the top of the letters. So people underpinning everything, focusing on people and not just on the traditional, which is on the right-hand side of the graphic there in the green box. That's the traditional part of cybersecurity that everybody's focused on. It's going to be the technology aspect, with often neglecting the people. And for anybody listening that might think it sounds an awful lot like the sort of bend the knees, lift the box video that I imagine we've all watched at some point in our lives, or those kind of training and awareness things, there is a certain element to that, I'm afraid. However, it's all about getting people to take something away. If you tell people 10 things, they might remember 1. That's brilliant. They remember 1 more thing about cybersecurity than they knew at the beginning of the training exercise. And so that's what makes it important. So how do we do it? Using a security awareness training platform, as we at Complete IT do, as you saw the results from earlier, you can train your teams in the various aspects of cybersecurity and IT governance. So from GDPR and keeping data secure or only capturing data for the purposes it's intended or only putting it in the correct place, to phishing, to hacking, to malware, to anything you would choose to. Unlike a cybersecurity trainer that may only be in your business for 1 day per year or per quarter or per month if you're really lucky, you can train when and where you choose. And say, for example, any new team members who, of course, start the day after the trainer was in, as is always the way, or for people who couldn't be in on the day that the trainer was in because they had a really important client meeting, or they were on holiday, or they were unwell, then they can take part in the training. Following the training, you have the ability to conduct fake phishing campaigns, which, although not 100% by any means, you'd be surprised how quickly the news spreads when somebody says, "Oh, I've received this thing, and I think it's a test," even though I think someone's having a test with us. By the way, we can stagger when the emails go out, so we don't send them all at the same time, but still, it's not 100%. You can see or have an idea about how your teams are reacting because they're receiving these emails every day, every single day. Either Royal Mail parcels that, why would Royal Mail know your email address? They know your postal address. Or that they'll be receiving HMRC refunds or tax demands. Trust me, the tax man wants some money from you. They don't email you. And or they might be receiving bank refunds, whatever it is that they may be. You don't know what they're doing because you can't stand over all their computers all day. So by training and then testing with a phishing campaign, you get some idea about what's going on. And then lastly, analyze. So by repeating this across, say, a 12, 24-month period, you should see some trends. So for example, if a first training campaign and then phishing campaign were to yield a 5% click-through rate by people putting their credentials in. So we sent to 100 people, 5 people put their credentials in on the fake web page. So we had 5% failure rate. By then further training and further testing, say over a 12-month period, you should see that decrease. And so that gives you, number one, peace of mind, but it also gives you the ability to demonstrate to your customers, clients, and prospects that you actively invest in cybersecurity training and that you're continuously improving as a business, which in this day and age of GDPR and of just general cybersecurity awareness is a really, really important thing. It's something a business can use to shout about rather than it just being, quote unquote, a cost line. Next one for me is two-factor authentication. So to cut the jargon, this is really, really quite simple. It's requiring something other than your password to log into a service. Commonly, this is via a code that's generated via a smartphone app. The banking industry have been doing this for years with those annoying little card readers that we all got sent probably about 10 to 15 years ago that we promptly all put in a drawer and lost. And then the next time we had to get into our online banking, we spent half an hour turning the house upside down trying to find the little keypad thing. With two-factor authentication, it's brilliant because you're very welcome to know my passwords to log into things. Without my phone and my fingerprint and the code or the authentication prompt that pops up as a result, you can't log into services as me. So it doesn't matter how many, if a service I subscribe to, if my password gets hacked and ends up on the dark web, people can't log in as me. I will see failed login attempts because they can't get to my two-factor authentication codes. They're followed around by me. In my opinion, any internet-facing service that you use as a business, be it email, CRM, anything, whatever it is, if you can log into it when you're outside of your office and your firewall, which, let's face it, these days is most things, it has to be protected by a two-factor authentication method. The nice thing is, commonly, most services such as Microsoft 365 Suite, so the Office 365 and Microsoft 365 Suite, have it all built in. It just needs to be activated. Yes, it's an inconvenience, but it's an inconvenience I believe is worth it in order to protect data security because passwords are being released every day. You have got the confidence of knowing that people who are logging into your systems are actually logging in as you. They are the person who they pertain to be, and they're not somebody who's just grabbed their password. As well, just as a bit of an aside, what are people doing when they're logging in as you? So they say, fine, you've got my email address, you've got my work password, you've logged into my work email, now what? Well, as well as obviously being a bit of a miscreant and sending out emails potentially to your customers' clients, asking for money from you, which they might pay, but of course the link in the email is to some Western Union transfer, or to sending money to a bank account that definitely isn't yours. So unfortunately, then you're in the embarrassing situation of having appeared to have extorted money from the people you do business with, or at least it's come from your network. The second thing they could do, it's really, really simple, is just put a permanent forwarder on, put a mailbox rule in, log into Outlook Web Access, for example, and put a permanent forwarder rule on that says every email that gets sent or received to this mailbox, forward out to this mysterious Hotmail, Outlook, Gmail account, whatever it is. You're not going to know it's there unless you went looking. It's not going to tell you. No one's going to reply to emails to say, did you send this to me? It seems a bit odd. It's just going to sit there really silently. And in the meantime, all the information that you receive or send is going to be passed out to an anonymous third party that can use it to then learn things about other businesses that they can then use to target them. Or, of course, they could choose to release it online, causing data security, causing data breaches, which in this day and age, you would have to inform the Information Commissioner of under GDPR, which is embarrassing and has reputational benefits, reputational impacts on the business. So that's what they're doing. It's really, really painful, but all eradicated by using two-factor authentication. Because it doesn't matter if they know who you are, they still can't log in as you as a result of stealing your credentials. And on that note, it's time to have a look at some of your questions. So if you want to send them in, please, via the Zoom webinar chat, then we can see them and we'll reply to them. So first one that we've got is around spoofing of emails. And it's to say that people who are customers of ours receive emails that pretend to be from us, although they obviously aren't. What can we do to prevent this? It's a really, really good question. It's a really, really good question. Companies that we work with, businesses that we partner with to look after their IT, obviously email security is a big thing for us now, making sure that their email systems are correctly administered and locked down so that they reject, so that when a client receives an email that's from a business it's actually not from, that it gets rejected. The email is a really difficult one to lock down because you can protect your own house as much as you like. It doesn't mean that your neighbor has. And hopefully I can explain myself well enough. Even though your business will use this, I'm sorry for the horrible IT acronyms here, but there are things such as SPF records, Sierra Papa Foxtrot, SPF records, DKIM, DMARC, and all other techniques that we can use for verifying email senders, essentially. So it's like an authentication system that people who are sending emails are actually who they pertain to be. That only works for you. It doesn't work for the people who you do business with. So if unfortunately one of your customers' email servers is not configured with such technologies, is not configured and locked down correctly, then they will receive those emails. And it doesn't matter that they're coming from you, even though they're not, by the way, that they're faked as being from you, saying, please click this link and send this, invoice is overdue, please click this link. That you can't control. As I said, it's a bit like having all the locks changed in your house and burglar alarm fitted, and a week later your next door neighbour's house being burgled, and they're sort of asking why you've just had your security upgraded, why we're getting broken into. You can't affect it because it's up to them, the receiving email server, what it can receive. So hopefully I've explained that one okay. We have a question come through about which testing platform that we use. We use a few, actually. We use different ones because we found that different clients have required different levels of service of available features, and one size does not fit all. So the example that I showed earlier in the slide deck, so the Amazon one that I sent out, was conducted using the WebRoot Security Awareness Training module. So we partner with WebRoot for delivery of our cybersecurity services, such as anti-malware, antivirus, web filtering, DNS protection, and also for security awareness training, because it was it's quite light touch in terms of it's very quick to get up and going, to get campaigns up and going, to get education campaigns up and going, and also to get the results captured. There are other platforms that we also utilize for where clients have more stringent regulatory demands or have to need more levels of information access. Examples of that would be things such as Know Before. So yeah, WebRoot Security Awareness Training was the one that I used earlier on. Question come in, what should we do when we discover somebody has clicked on the link and entered passwords? Yeah, really good question. Best thing you can do as a result of that is make sure they get it changed everywhere. So first of all, if you know that somebody will come to you and go, I'm really, really sorry, and I don't want to tell anybody, but I've clicked this link and then I put my email address and password and I realized I'm not expecting anything from DPD. And I've just logged in and I think it's all gone wrong. First of all, don't panic. The best thing we can do is say, right, what are we going to do? Do you use that same password anywhere else? Get it changed on your corporate network, get it changed on your email system if your email system lives separately to your computer logons, as it does for some people. That's a really, really important one. If you can and you already haven't, then I would very hurriedly get two-factor authentication enabled on anything that you can do. Yes, so that's about it. The other thing that you would consider is, as well, did you download anything? Did you click on any attachments? If you did, my advice would be pull the network cable out of their computer and rebuild it. Malware will commonly stay dormant on a machine for up to around about, I think mean average these days is about 90 days, because they're not silly enough to make themselves known very quickly, because that would flag as to okay, we're here. So staying dormant for a period of time until you've forgotten and then making yourself known, that could be like a CryptoLocker style infection or anything along those lines is quite common these days. So if anything was downloaded, I would take the pragmatic approach, take it off the network, rebuild the machine from scratch. Then you've got the security in knowing that that machine is clean and it's not infected in anything that just hasn't made itself known. How often should passwords be changed? Another one that's come in. Here's a good one as well, very good one. Now, the latest school of thought from GCHQ, the National Cybersecurity Center at GCHQ, came from the Americans originally, is that they shouldn't be, and you should have one very good secure password that you don't use anywhere else. Now, that's wonderful, but there are some leaps of faith in there that people do what they're asked and they don't use it somewhere else. So I'm still a believer in changing passwords. We at Complete IT change our passwords every 30 days for our corporate network to log on, which is also our email and everything else, because we have single sign-on for a great deal of our applications. So we're not having too many to remember, which reduces the odds of people using the same password everywhere when they don't have to remember as many. Also means they're more inclined to use a more secure one. So yeah, my recommendation would be to aid in making sure people aren't using the same one everywhere, or if they are, they're being changed and you're only is 30 days, then you're no more than 30 days out from it hopefully being changed. Also, just to add to that on password age as well, if the system allows, and most do, don't allow people to reuse the previous at least 12, so that you know that people aren't just changing their password to one and changing it back to the original one again. So that would be an extra thing. So 30 days max age, and don't allow at least the last 12. We've got a question come through. Can CIT carry out the fake phishing campaigns to test our staff teams? Yes, we can. Please just talk to your account manager for more information on that one, please, and we can get it tested for you. The other thing that we can do is when I showed the slide on the on my dark web ID theft forum extract, is we can also run a search of what is known to our search utility that is held on your domain name. So we search not based on a person, but we search based on like at abcassociates.com as an example, and then we can show you a report of everything that our search utilities have found that we know has been that we know is attributed to your business that's been breached on the internet. Unfortunately, I can't tell you that that's an exact science, because as you see, anything that is trying to pull information from ultimately hacking networks is only what we know about and only what's been catalogued. However, it's better than nothing. So if you would like to know what's there, then please just let us know, either via your account manager if you are already a client of Complete IT, or please just send in an email to, or sorry, a question via this webinar, or an email to info@complete-it.co.uk, and we're very happy to do that for you. Do you use a password manager for your users? Has come in. Yes, we do. So we use internally at Complete IT. We use some industry tools that are geared towards IT companies. So we use a system called IT Glue for our documentation management. That also has passwords built in, so we know who's accessed what password, when, that the passwords aren't held, they're encrypted. Excuse me, and there's an audit trail on when they were last changed, etc., etc. For recommendations for people to use as password managers, there are loads out there. On a personal note, I will say that I use and swear by LastPass. LastPass has desktop apps, mobile apps, they all sync together. So I don't know most of my own passwords. I get LastPass to generate them for me. So that would just be a personal recommendation. to people. Question come in about, do you have a pack that we can use to train staff? Please go on the website. Please go on our website. There is so much there. We've got infographics. We've got a cybersecurity ebook that's available to download. Our marketing team really do work really hard on trying to make as much content as they can for people. And as anybody who works in any form of content distribution or any content creation for the businesses that you work in, you will know the struggles of creating stuff that ultimately sees far fewer eyes than you ever hoped it would do when you created it. So please, it's all free, it's all on the website. Please go and make it available to you and your teams. Also follow us on social media such as LinkedIn and Twitter, because we post loads and loads of content, really, I think, useful content when it comes to simple, bite-sized, quantifiable ways of hopefully making a difference to people, of changes of habits. And be it either some quote unquote water cooler posters to put up about for example, don't reuse the same password, lock your computer when you walk away from it, let us know if you see something that doesn't make sense, don't keep it to yourself. Just the small things that make such a big difference. There's always a temptation to come at cybersecurity, I think, from a really heavy-handed angle of, we're going to implement this technology and these policies and these processes. The simple things work really, really well to start with, and people, I find, often run the risk of doing nothing because they set too lofty goals to start with. Just little, often, and simple, and build is a far more effective defense, because you've got much more of an odds of actually doing it. Implementing a password policy, for example, is quick, easy, and free. And that's better than coming up with a grand sort of plan and campaign for how you're going to revolutionize your cybersecurity that never quite gets off the ground. So start small and build up. Okay then. Right, well, thank you again for your time today from myself and all the team here at Complete IT. I hope you found it useful. If anybody has any follow-up questions, then please either contact us again via your account manager if you're a client of ours already, or please feel free to give us a call on any of our numbers listed on the website, or in emails, to info@complete-it.co.uk. And we look forward to speaking to you again soon. Thank you very much.